Today we're going to take a look at a fairly easy piece in the key of D by Ferdinando Carulli, again early 19th century, first half of the 19th century. Just a piece of his called Waltz and Variations in the key of D. Doesn't have all that title, he just calls it Waltz. And then, or Valsa, probably Italian. I'm not worried about that too much. So hopefully you have already seen the lesson on reading notes in the key of D, and you're familiar with your D scale. At least up to A, because what we're going to do in this lesson is kind of walk through, first we'll walk through the part, or the whole piece, the main theme and the two variations, kind of scoping out things that are happening, and then I'll play through it later. So the things to look for are whether we have chords, intervals, thirds, which there are a lot of those in this. So at quick glance, hopefully you've reviewed your thirds in the key of D. We also want to kind of take a look for places where we have scale runs. We'll be alternating right-hand fingers on those types of things, or arpeggios. This is a waltz, so it's in 3 triple time at least. Now he wrote this in 3/8, but we want to play it slow enough so that the beats, especially when we see 16th notes a little bit later, that we want to just keep it going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Just because it's in 3/8 doesn't mean it has to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Hard to waltz to that. Different kinds of dances. So anyway, coming up, our lesson on Carulli's exercise here in D. And what I'll do first is just kind of walk through it, thinking out loud. Yeah. And then we'll play through it. So first, I'd like you to take a look at it and start scoping it out yourself, seeing what kind of problems we might have in there. Look for, also keep an eye out for accidentals, times when he would temporarily leave the key of D. So you want to have a, an eye out for those before you get surprised by them. Okay, I'll walk through it next, and then we'll play through Carulli's Waltz and Variations. Let's see what we have here. Start taking a look at the top of the page. This one, by the way, is more of from a manuscript rather than my usual Guitar Pro things. So you obviously notice it looks a little bit different. What I see in the first part is bass notes played on beat 1, and then a couple of pairs of notes, small chords, intervals, on the second and third beats. So I want to try to recognize those, and in the first measure, you should see right away that we've got a pair of the first third in the key of D, D and F sharp. The next interval is wider, so we're not just sliding to something like this, we're going to be reversing things. So I see a second chord there that looks, and I think, okay, I'm going to have to pay attention to that one. So now looking for a little bit further before we go through there, I see a sharp coming up in the fourth measure. So I see that there's this little 8-measure phrase, and it really just has a couple of chords in it and a little bit of a melody in the middle. Continuing with the next part, I see different bass notes. It looks like we've gone from D's and A's to A's and E's. And then a couple of different chords, another accidental coming up. At one point, as we get into the second line, we're going to see a quick change with the G sharp and the B, and then an accident, not really an accidental, but in the measure following it, the G natural being reinstated because we're coming back into the key of D. Okay, let's start playing through it and see what we have. We've got a D and a pair of notes that are really part of a D chord. Let's see what this sounds like. Slowly. 1, 2, 3. hopefully I didn't speed up too much as time went on through there. It's kind of hard to play the first part that slowly, but I was trying to save a little gas in the tank for when the 16th notes came out there. Something else occurred to me as I was playing that I meant to tell you about. Oh yeah, very important thing. Last little thoughts on this are be sure to be looking ahead as much as you can. Now this has a lot of notes changing quickly, and it can be a little, especially when we get into the last part, with sometimes scales, sometimes notes played by steps apart, sometimes notes played skips apart, arpeggio type things. So it really takes a lot of focus and concentration to get through there, but looking ahead rather than just what note you're on all the way is kind of an important thing in there. So, okay, there we have a nice little easy piece in the key of D. I've got some other ones of different levels, at least in the pipeline, although by the time you're seeing this, they may already be out. Also encourage you to check out Kemp's Jig. It's a piece that's already in the program that is in the key of D, uses a few more accidentals, and stays mostly in first position as well. But that's it for Soar. Soar's a different one. We're going to look at Soar later. At Carulli's Waltz and Variations in D.